Hey guys, Zomfox here, and today it is time to do the Scarlet and Violet Paldea Evolved Illustration Rare tier list. Now, a couple weeks ago I ended up doing one based on the base set of Scarlet and Violet, and I said I was planning to do every single one of these up until, well, we get through the entire Scarlet and Violet era, and probably even go into the Mega Evolution era. And well, it is time for Paldea Evolved. Now, Paldea Evolved, the big set. This is one of the biggest sets of the entire era. I think it is the biggest one because this one was like 3 Japanese sets. It was like Clayburst, Triple B, and another one. Just a wild set, a ton of illustration rares, ton of SIRs, really good pull rates. This is a really cool set. I'm trying to go through this a bit faster than last time because the last episode we ended up taking a pretty decent amount of time. So let's get started with the Heracross. Heracross, man, this is a forgettable one right here. The Heracross it's a nice looking card, but again, this is one that's very forgettable. I didn't even remember the set having one of these, despite the fact this is a set I opened up a ton, and I looked at that, little book you got in the ETB a lot. As an overall card, it's an okay one. I don't think this is an uninspiring F tier one, but I do think this is a D tier one. I think that it's just a really basic one that doesn't really have too much going on for it. So I'm going to have to put it in the B tier. Or the D tier, I just don't think it's all that great. Now the Tropius. This is a really nice one. Again, I love the illustrations that do feel like an illustration like this one. It feels like a special type of drawing. And because of how things are done, it even has that like somewhat of a stitched looking pattern. Honestly, a really solid one. I don't think this is a super high one. It's not like it's the most absurd detailed thing in the world. But overall, I think that is a very, very solid one, all things considered. I definitely think this one needs to be on one of these higher ones. I think this is definitely between an A and a B for me. I think that at the end of the day, when you compare it to other ones, I do think that I got to put it in the A tier. This is probably a lower end A tier, but it still is a very, very good card. So going in the A tier. And now we have Sprigatito. Now this whole evolution line, of course, is one that's a big deal for me because Scarlet is one of my 6 favorite Pokemon of all time. But if I'm going to be honest, I do think that this specific card is a bit overrated. I only talk about prices when it really matters in terms of certain cards, and this is one of the higher dollar illustration rares of the set, and I really don't think it should be. Here's the thing, I don't think this is a card that is bad. I don't think this is a card that is bad at all. It's a good card, it's great artwork, but I don't think it's deserving to be in like that super high tier because it feels like a lot of people view this as like an S tier rarity. I think this is the same as Tropius. It's a really good card, and when you compare them back to back, it's do you want the one that has that really like better feel of a card, or the one that naturally is more of a realistic looking card? So I think it's an A tier. It's a solid one. Now Florgato. Now this one is just a worse version of the Sprigatito. There's less flowers. I get that the whole point is setting it up for the final one, but the final one is done a lot better as well. This is somewhat of the opposite of the Curlia Ralts when we talked about last time, where the Curlia ended up being a lot better than the Ralts, mainly because of the story. This is kind of the opposite. This is the one that kind of is like the ugly middle child. It's going to go in the B tier. It's still a solid one, but it's just, when you compare it to the Sprigatito, it's just kind of clear that one of them is just, well, better. Now we have the Bramblin. This is a nice one. Now, it's a cool one. The fact that you have all the Bramblin everywhere actually makes sense in this one. I know that I've talked in the past about having, like, kind of spamming the Pokemon not making a lot of sense. This one, it does. The idea of making it look like somewhat of a deserted town with all these Bramblin just kind of, swooping in everywhere actually looks really good. Is it as good as, like, the Starly one from Scarlet and Violet? No, but I do think this is another B tier one. I think it's a pretty solid one. It's a good one, goes to the B tier. And now we have Fletchinder. Another one that I just completely forgot was in this one. Gonna be honest, pretty uninspired one. This is another one of those uninspired cards when you really think about it. Like, it's nice, but it just, the amount of detail in it really isn't, necessary. I guess the little Fletchling cup is cool. I think this is a C tier one. I think that it is more eye appealing than the Heracross, but it's still not really a, great one. So I'm putting it in the C tier. And now we have Pyroar. Another one that I completely forgot was in this one. Now, this one is kind of controversial for me. Because on one hand, this is a card that, again, falls in that issue for me, which is it doesn't have to be an illustration rare. You can just put basically the top Pyroar and make that a card and have everything else be just a background. At the same time, this background is actually done really well. Having the other, the female and the male version of the Pyroar in the background, the little Lipios, actually makes it a really nice looking card. But to me, I just think that even though it does have that somewhat illustration-looking feel, I think that overall this is definitely, again, on the lower end of this one. And it's just kind of between C and D, but again, like I did last time where I used the Wiglet as a good indicator of, like, a certain tier, this is better than the Heracross, goes in the C tier. Now we have Fuecoco. This is probably the nicest-looking evolution line of the 3 starters. This is a really cool card. It is super detailed, having all the different like drinks. I mean, like their sauces, drinks, the little chips, everything. Having the kid pushing his Fue Coco, and it is a really nice one. I do honestly think this should be an S tier. I think it is kind of a crime that this one is not worth like it's technically worth like the same as Sprigatito, and the reason I bring it up is because like it's just you compare these two, the Fue Coco looks better, and this is from somebody who like does not care about Fue Coco and that evolution line like at all. It is a significantly nicer one. Then Crocolore. Now this one is a really nice one as well. It's it's older, it evolved, and now it is actually trying to like get food, and it's really cute. But it's not as good as the other one, though I do think it's just as good as the Sprigatito. It's a really solid one. It's just, once again, it's like a downgrade. It's like the downgrade from Sprigatito to Florgato. It's the same thing. Still a great one, but yeah. Now the Magikarp. Look, I still believe it is somewhat overvalued. The fact this is an IR, even though there's a lot of IRs in the set, this is a basic illustration rare in a set that had really good pull rates. But it is deserving of being that high dollar card. It's an S tier. It is an unbelievable artwork. Of course, Shinji Kondo stuff is becoming really iconic. That's why everybody thinks the Magneton's going to blow up in value at some point. It is a beautiful card. There's really nothing to say. It's an easy S tier. Meryl. This is a nice one. This is a really cute one. The fact that you have the Meryl on there, and then you have the Love Disc and the random Bruxish, and then, the Clauncher just there, the Pincurchin. It's a cool one. Now, exactly where do I put it? It's tough. Because, again, do I think this is as good as, like, the Wiglet? No. But is it somewhat close? I do think so. I think that this is a B tier. I want to put it in A tier. I think that there's a good argument to be made this is an A tier one. But I'm just not putting it up there. I think that at the end of the day, the top half is what really hurts this card. Bottom half, it's incredible. The top half, really uninspired illustration rare, but then the bottom half really, really good. But I think that it's good, like it's good enough in a sense that it's really, really good in the bottom to justify putting it in B tier instead of C tier, which normally would be where it would go because there's a really awful top half and a really great bottom half, but because of how great the bottom half is, I think C tier is good for it. Now we have the Ice Cube. I think it is. I get the idea. You have the Ice Cube in the little refrigerator trying to cool off its head, even though it doesn't really matter like that. It is nice, but I don't think it's obscene. You know what I mean? I don't think it's an insane looking card. I don't think it's the best illustration ever. It's just one of those where it's like you compare it to the Fue Coco. It's like, come on, man. It ain't as good as the Fue Coco. I would put this in B tier. I think it is a good one. It's just that in this set where you have a decent amount of these like shop looking ones, it just clearly is on the lower tier. Now we have Quaxley. This is a really weak line, I'm not going to be honest. This line of illustration is really weak. It all tells like story with, the mirror on the wall showing him in reflection, which is cool. But I think that overall, it's not the best. The whole storyline of the extra gel and stuff and getting it, like, I'm not a fan of it, and I honestly want to put it in D tier. It's just that it's so much better than Heracross, so it's going in C tier. I'm not a fan. And that also goes for the Quaxwell. It is literally the same thing with like a few extra things. But unlike the Curlier, which is legit telling a story, this is just, adding extra stuff. So again, C tier. And now we have the really cool one, and that's the Frigibax line. This whole line is really cool because it's basically just a fever dream, and the further you go, the more feverish it gets. And this is one of those lines that I do think is severely undervalued. Like, the highest dollar one is like the Baxcalibur, and I think it's like a $13 card. Should be worth significantly more. This Frigibax, though, is the weakest by far of the three, and it's still better than anything in C tier. I think it's a B tier one. Now, as for Arctibax, this is a better one. Now you're starting to get to the real fever dream looking thing. And you can probably tell me how to go with this one. It looks pretty fever dreamy. It is a nice one. It's definitely better. A tier. And then last but not least, we have the Baxcalibur. This is a WTF what's going on. It is such a just dynamic card. It is one of the most dynamic cards of the entire era. S tier. Pure dynamic, I think that it is honestly more dynamic to look at than the Magikarp. It is not a better card in like the artwork in that sense, but in terms of like, it's hard to explain it. In terms of dynamic, like, whoa, what is that? it's the best card in this set by far, one of the best of the series. Easy S tier for me, deserves it. Raichu. Not a fan, honestly. I'm really not. I think it's such a basic one, and the fact that this is like one of the this is one where I do have to take into the value to account. The fact that this is like right now the third most expensive card in the set is just insane to me. It really does feel like this is just Gen 1 privilege. This is not an insane card. This is not like it's like I don't know. It doesn't have enough to give me a story. It's just a Raichu sleeping on a bed. You know what I mean? I really don't think it's that good. I honestly am going to put it in D tier. I don't think it's F tier. Like I said, F tier is like for really uninspired stuff or things that just do not fit what an illustration rare should be. This isn't that bad, but it's almost that bad. And then we have Miss Magius. This is a really solid one. This is a nice one. Miss Magius does fit really well. It makes it kind of look like a tarot card or something like that. It's a really cool one out of the window tarot card thing. I don't think it's a super high tier one. Again, I don't think that it's as good as these other A tier ones, but I think it's a B tier one. I compared a lot to the Frigibax. I think it's a solid one to compare to that one. Then Gothorita. I really don't get this card. This is another one I don't fully get. Like, you have all the other stuff with the bows that kind of look like Gothitelle in somewhat of a way, like the background one. There's a lot of stuff, like there is the picture in the background, but it's like, because of where it is, it does still look like a Gothorita. It doesn't look like a, Gothita, which then is like the Curlier from last series, where it makes sense in a storyline perspective. I think this is just like the Raichu. I think this is a D tier one. It just, if you're not making me see a story, and you're not a naturally, like, truly great looking card, I'm not a fan, so going in there. And then we have Sandygast. Normally, a card like this, I would put straight in the bottom couple of tiers. Not this one. This is a great one. Having the Sandygast just sitting in a child's sandbox, like a playground sandbox, is both so cute and so sad, just having the Sandygast there in the middle of all these toys. It fits really well being there. This is a really nice one. This is not an S tier type. I do think this is an A tier. It's a really nice one. The fact is that you have that little sunlight glow makes it to where, as you can see on this on your screen, you have that dynamic looking line from it because of how it is, because that's the sun reflecting on the back of the sandbox, which is super dynamic. It's a great card. Definitely deserves it. Easily goes to the A tier. Now, Rabska, one I completely forgot was in this one. I'm not even going to lie. Now, where do I put this one? I really don't know. This is another one that I'm just not a fan of. I really don't like this one. It feels a lot like the cloth from the last series, where you're just throwing them on there. But at least the cloth had a reason. I think this is definitely one of the weakest illustration rares, because the other Rabskas are not like obscenely detailed. Like the two in the front, like the one in the very front, obviously the one below it, and the one to the right, like are right somewhat. I don't like this one. I think this is a pretty uninspiring one. I honestly think this is probably the weakest one in the entire set. This is probably the only F tier I'd say. Well, one of two. I'll get to the other one. Yeah, this is not good to me. I'm putting an F tier. Tinkatink. Not a huge fan of this one again, though it does actually look pretty nice. Having all the gems around it, having it holding it. This is a nicer one than the last one, but it's still a weaker one. I'm putting in D tier. D tier. Now, Tinkatuff. Continuing this line of not being really good at all. This one, it's hammering something. Just because you're throwing in a bunch of colors in a background doesn't make it a good background. This is going in D tier as well. And now we have Paldea and Tauros. This is, again, this works because of the fact it's like a bull stampede. It's not meant to be a reference, I don't think, but again, you think of, Ash and his, like 30 Tauros he has, and it makes sense in that front. Again, dynamic. It does have that, because you have the one Tauros at the very top. It looks like the main character having the sun hitting it, rather than sunrise or sunset, hitting it directly in the back, giving you those lines. Really nice one. Again, not like an incredible one, but I do think this is a B tier one. Another really solid one. Definitely deserves to be in the B tier. Now, Sudowoodo. Normally, this is direct F. Pokemon in the background, just randomly. Because at least Sandygast was center, not really background. This one, though, this is literally Sudowoodo. This is it done making... This is what the Sandile one was trying to be. This is it done well. Having the Sudowoodo perfectly placed where it clearly should belong, like a tree should be. having it just vibing there is a really beautiful artwork and a really good card. Again, I think that this is what they were trying to get with the Sandile, but couldn't really get well, to where it just looked really weird. This is how you do it. This is debatably an S, but for me, I think this is the high tier of A. This is the benchmark. If you're better than this, you're S tier. Now we have Knackley. Where do I put Knackley? This is one that I'm not really the biggest fan of, because it's just randomly there. Like, I get it's like the salt one, so it does make sense being on the kitchen table like that. I think it's a solid one. I don't think it's a insane one. It does make sense being there. The background is nice. I think that it is, again, better than D tier, but kind of average C tier. Now we have Paldea and Wooper. Again, this is a lot like the Sandile. The thing with the Sandile that really didn't make sense was because you put it front and center, it wasn't really like even remotely hiding. This one somewhat is. But even then, it still is pretty not good. It just looks like it's in the middle of quicksand, just, sinking down. I think this is probably D tier. I think this is just not really a good one. This definitely deserves there. Tyranitar. This is a card that is one of the most expensive cards in the entire set. Well, not one. It's up there. It's like, I think in like that tier 2. I know it's like the 4th most expensive card. And it does deserve to be up there. It is a beautiful card. It is a cool one. It makes him look literally like a Godzilla. A really cool card on that front. Having the Star Raptors and like Staravia and all them around, it's a really nice one. This is another one that does deserve the hype. I am putting it in S tier. Now, Grafify. This is a lot like the Toad School, except because of the Pokemon it actually makes sense. Like, this is what the Toad School was trying to look like, despite it being Toad School. This is how it should be, right? This is a Pokemon that this is like kind of the point of it. So it's that done better, but it's still not like insane. It's still not a great, like, it's not a top tier artwork. This again is one of those where it's like debatable on here. I think this is probably the low end of A. The more you look at it, the more cool it is, but it's definitely like, it's the weakest A for sure. It's not as good as these other ones, but it still deserves to be an A tier. Now, Orthworm. This is a one that just, again, it's just, to me, it's so basic. But it does make sense, so it's kind of hard to put it exactly where. Having them just jumping up and going back into the sand does make a lot of sense. But at the end of the day, you could easily just make this a regular card. I mean, it's basically already there. You can just legit cut it like right there and have both Orthworms in it, and you're missing nothing. D tier. Let's see. Rookity. This is your, Mom, can we have the Starly illustration rare? We have the Starly illustration rare at home. This is the one at home. It's still, this one though is still good. It's just not as good as the Starly. The Starly was a higher tier one. That one's like an AS tier kind of one. This is, I think, a B tier, so it's going there. Now we have Mousehold. I'm going to be honest with you, Chief. I have no idea where this card is worth money. This is like literally the 5th most expensive card of the set, and it's like one of those, and it's like its own tier by itself. And it's like, no. In no way, shape, or form should it be that high. No way. It shouldn't. It is such a just kind of mediocre looking card in a lot of ways. Like, not mediocre, it's okay. It is not better than anything in A tier. And it's barely as good as the B. Like, you're going to look at the bottom half of the barrel and be like, yeah, this Mousehold's better than this one. Like, you're going to, with a straight face, say that this bottom half is better than this whole card. This bottom half is better than this whole card. So, for me, I'm honestly putting it in C tier. I think that is an overvalued card, overrated card. It's not great. Flamingo. The Flamingo Pokemon. I mean, like, dude, it's a Flamingo Pokemon, and it's as basic a card as you can get. It's just a bunch of Flamingos just plopped. It's not even like they put any effort. They literally basically, they just straight up copy and pasted the same Flamingo 7 times and then added one in the middle. Like, F tier. It is, no. Like, this is like taking a meme too far. This is like going mainstream with a meme. Like, no. For Farigiraf. Honestly, this is it's a weird one, but it's a funny one. Like, having the one kind of giving you that weird look, and then you have the other ones in the background is kind of cool. Again, it suffers from this could just be a normal Pokemon card, but the only difference is this one wouldn't work as well as other ones because you would be cutting off, like, the legs and the top of the head, so it does work in that front. I think it's an okay one. I think this is a solid C tier card. It's okay. Dunsparce. the literal meme Pokemon. They were finally giving it an evolution as this. Showing the underground stuff is actually really cool. Now, I think it is hilarious that they just kind of, threw a Diglett looking like that, where it just doesn't make sense. But the fact that it's supposed to look like an underground, thing, having the berries held it up, having the random just fungus in there, it honestly does look pretty cool. Having this stuff look like in-game sprites, having the white outline around the black outline is a really cool touch, honestly. It's a solid one, but it's a very forgettable one. I think it's a B tier one. It is a solid one, but I think it's better than pretty much all of C, but it's not as good as, again, the bottom half of the Marill, the Frigibacks. It's not as good as those ones. And now we have the Meowscarada. I would love to put this in S tier because it's Meowscarada, but it is not. It is a great card. It's significantly better than the last one. The bottom line is, though, for how cool a card it is, it's not the most insane. It doesn't really fit with the other two. Like, the other ones, even though they're different, they actually fit. Like, this one and this one both fit. This one doesn't really fit as well with them, but I think it's still an A tier one. It's a great one. It's a dynamic one with the pose. Having it just, with the... because of how, the cape is set up, it just looks really dynamic. But, yeah. Wochian. Not a fan. This is another one I'm just not really a fan of. I get it, but I don't like this one. I think this is another really lower tier one. Having him in just all these overgrown vines, again, it does make sense. But just because it makes sense doesn't mean it's a good card, as I said before. I think this is the F tier. This is the last F tier card here, but I definitely think it deserves to be there. Now we have Skeleturge. Now this is a really cool one. Having the dude basically growing up with that look, and then having Skeleturge now getting rid of its phase of just throwing stuff in the backpack and instead now carrying everything is a really cool touch. This is a really nice one, and this one deserves to be a higher dollar card than it honestly is. The fact that this one is not even in the top 10 most expensive cards is really shocking to me. This is a tough one for S tier. This is a really tough one between both these. At the end of the day, though, I think it deserves it. This line really does compete with the Ralts line. The only thing is basically is the Ralts is a weaker one. But the Kirlia and Gardevoir, I feel like the Kirlia and Gardevoir are better than both of these ones. But the Ralts is worse than this one. And so it's a tough one. But I'd say that at this point, this is the second best overall evolution line. Third would definitely be the Frigibacks line. The Baxcalibur is just such a good card. Now, Chi-Yu. This is the Wochian done better because of the fact that it has that dynamic. You can't just do a dark card. You can't do an illustration mirror that's super dark and have the Pokemon not be front and center. Chi-Yu does it better. The fact that you have this really weird look on it to where it plays tricks with your mind in a lot of ways where you could easily see this being just, a fish in the water, or you'd see this being a flying fish because it's not done in a way that explicitly says this is water or this is land. And that is done really well. I think this is a really nice one. It has an illustration feel to it. I think this is a solid A tier one. It is the Wochian done so much better. Now we have Quackavall. Fun fact, this was the first SIR pulled, I believe, from this whole era. And it's not that good. It is, again, C tier. This whole line is the definition of meh. Or better yet, not meh, mid. It's just super mid. It doesn't really tell a story. It's just throwing some hair supply stuff, and then you get less. It's just not good. Chien-Pao. This one is in the middle. Again, they try to do this thing with all of the four of them where they're all the similar ones. But this one and the Ting-Lu were both just not really that dynamic. You might say it is. I don't. Again, I think the darker background kind of hurts this one. I think it's a C tier one. Take-A-Ton, another one of those that's worth a decent amount of money, and I really don't think it should be. It's just, the whole evolution line, I feel are just kind of meh. I do think it is better than the other two, though, so I'm putting it at C tier, but not my favorite. Now, Ting-Lu. Ting-Lu is... I'm just going to throw it directly with Chien-Pao. Actually, no, I'm putting it lower. It's so much less dynamic than Chien-Pao, despite having those rays of sun from the top and having the bottom like that. And it should, but to me, nah. Squawkabilly. Is it as good as the Rookity? No. It's still a nice one. Having the different colors makes a lot of sense. It is a pretty cool one. The illustration feel is really nice, but again, is it as good as Rookity? No. And so, it's another C tier one. And now time for the trainers. You have Boss's Orders. Getsus having these chest-looking thing on the thing actually makes a lot of sense. Having the compass, candle, and all that. This makes a lot of sense. This is a really nice one. I think this is a pretty cool one. It makes sense this one has some value, should be worth more, but I digress. It is still a nice one. You're talking about like the most evil person in the history of like the Pokemon games, like at least the regular games, because you might have one eviler in like XD or Coliseum, but still a really nice one. I don't think this is like a top tier. I think this is an A tier for a trainer. It's or B tier for a trainer. It's really nice, but I think there have been better trainers. Dendra. This is a solid one. Having the water fountain is like a weird choice, but the fact this was like a super chase card in the Japanese set is hilarious to me. I will say that. Again, the waifu craze was diabolical, but this is still a nice one. It's not like it's an insane artwork. I think it's a C tier one. It's not having enough going on for me to put it high enough. But yeah. Now Giacomo. This is one that a lot like the Jack is very forgettable. It is even in this set, but this one I think is definitely better. Having the screen in the background, having what he's literally looking at is a really nice touch. Having him being like this whole like, soundboard setup and all that is a really cool one. The computer's, angle works and actually aligns with the background, again, making it make a lot of sense. There's a lot of details, him with the hot dog in his hand. It's a really nice one. I think that it is, honestly, just as good as the Getsus. You could argue that both these could be higher, but I'm putting it on the B tier as well. Grusha. This is a nice one. Again, the Ice-type gym leader, having the Starling in the back and the front is cool. This is another nice one. I think this is the nicest of all the trainer ones. I'm putting Grusha in A tier. I think it's the nicest of all of them. Especially seeing it in person, it deserves it. Iono. Man, this at least from what I remember was like the last of the real big waifu cards, because this was like during the peak of the popularity, as well as the fact this was a super playable card, but then the Paldean Fates one came out like just afterwards, so you had another playable one, so it tanked the value there. It's still like the second most valuable card, and I don't think it should be. It's a nice card. I think that a lot of the bright colors really kind of make it seem bigger than it is. I do think it's an A tier though. I think that it is the same tier as the Grusha. I think you can argue which one is better. If you want the more bright one, then yes, the Iona. But if you want the one that actually feels like a better card, it's the Grusha. And then last but not least is Saguario. Now, this is a nice one, having the Jigglypuff, Delibird, and the Squirtle all around, watching him wash his hands, about to cook some stuff. It's a really nice one. I think that, again, you compare it to, like, the Knackley. It's just... where's the Knackley? Somewhere over here, right? Yeah, I know it was in the middle about it, but I mean, wherever the Knackley is, I literally, there you go. It's just, this is so much better than this one, and it's the same idea. Because you have it zoomed out more, I get it, so Knackley's small. Because you have it zoomed out, you can fit a lot more stuff, and it just looks a lot better. So I definitely think it's a better one. I think that it definitely deserves to be in the A tier with the other one. 3 really solid trainers. But overall, I think that'll do it. Let me know down below what your thoughts are on this tier list. I know there's probably a lot more in that C, D, and F tier than you probably expected. Again, this was like 3 Japanese sets combined to 1, and this was still early on in the illustration era. And I think that, especially pricing versus what I think a a lot of these ones, like some of these are definitely overvalued. The Raichu Heracross being in those higher dollar cards to me makes no sense. Like, I get basic artwork can be great. Again, the Pseudo Wuda was proof of that. You can have a pretty basic artwork and have it look really great. But at the same time, it's like, you have to have some sort of storyline if you're doing an illustration rare like this, and those ones just don't have it, the Raichu and the Heracross. Wooper, same thing. But let me know what you think down below. Again, the next set we'll be doing, I believe, is Obsidian Flames, which is, like, I think the smallest of all the sets for illustration rares because it was one Japanese set, mainline set. So be looking for that. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed this video, as well as like the video. And as always, guys, have a great night.